Well, Brian, the transfer news around here slowed down a little bit, and now a lot of the focus to shift over to the future of Colorado football in terms of what conference they're going to be participating in. It's been almost a year now since USC and UCLA announced that they were jumping ship to the Big Ten. And all these regent meetings that get announced publicly have drawn a lot of attention throughout this whole process. I've heard that it's been just keeping those regents up to date. It really has had nothing to do with the Big 12. So I think a lot's been overblown there, but I get it. People are getting impatient, and maybe even some people in important spots here at the University of Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, you sort of have to get impatient if you're in important spots in Colorado, because it has been almost a year, and I think that over the course of the year, how many times have we heard that there might be a deal coming soon, there might be something coming soon, and so the important people here, the AD and the presidents and people like that, and Chancellor, have probably heard those things as well, and there's no deal. We're still, we're more than 11 months since USC and UCLA left and are announced they were leaving, and there's still no deal. And so I think if you're those 10 schools that are still left in the Pac-12, you've got to be a little antsy at this point and say, what's going on here? I mean, if there was a good deal to be had, you would think they'd be had by now.
Yeah. There's not a lot of people in the know, and those people are pretty tight-lipped.
Yeah.
What I've gathered from all the digging that I've tried to do in the last 11 months is that Colorado's focus is on putting itself in the best position. Mm-hmm. Now, it's hard to say what the best position is. And the best position doesn't mean for the next 5 years. It means when the chips fall here in the future in college football, and how that looks, we don't know at this point, but is it going to be 2 mega conferences? Colorado wants to find the best situation to try to ride that wave into the next phase of college football whenever that happens.
Yeah, for sure. And hiring Deion Sanders was a huge part of that, in that this program, we've talked about it before, that when there was no program that needed a jolt more than Colorado, right? They needed something like that. And so you take I don't even want to say risk, but for lack of a better term, I guess, because you have a coach here that his only college experience is a couple years at Jackson State. That obviously doesn't mean he can't do it, but there was a lot of schools that didn't take that jump, right? Colorado did, and it's a lot of reasons for it. We're seeing what he's doing with his program, but this is a long-term hire, and not meaning he's going to necessarily be here all that time, but this is a long-term thing, and that Colorado needs relevancy. They need it now. They need it for the long term. And Deion Sanders, you're hoping he've obviously made them more relevant than they were 6-7 months ago. You're hoping that he can win football games and get them to be more of a relevant team on the field. And if he does that, now all of a sudden Colorado's positioned to be, when the next round of Big Ten negotiations comes up, they're looking at, hey, Colorado's kind of attractive now. And so that's what they're looking at, in my opinion, and yours too. But the Deion Sanders hire is to me one of many steps that have to be taken for Colorado to get that bigger piece of the pie later on down the road.
Well, another big piece has already been accomplished in terms of being able to bring in transfers now, right? That was a piece that it kind of came in line with Coach Prime, because Coach Prime isn't taking this job if he can't overhaul the roster by not being able to bring in transfers. So that's the other part of it. I don't know where to put most of the blame, but I would imagine it would be still on Larry Scott and the presidents that allowed him to keep that job for as long as they did, more so than George Kliavkoff, who, I don't know, in the brief interactions we've had with him, he seemed to be really bright, a guy that would look outside the box, a guy that has a really good resume in terms of being able to negotiate a situation like this. But I can't wait to find out the details whenever this ends. Was this just a situation where Kliavkoff just didn't have the bargaining power with these TV companies because of the way the Pac-12 is perceived, or did he screw up along the way a little bit here? Because again, this is taking longer than it should have.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm sure that there's some people, some higher ups in the Pac-12 that might be frustrated with the commissioner. But to your point, he took over a bad situation. Larry Scott put the Pac-12 in a bad spot, and then right after he gets hired, the LA market leaves. That's a tough sell. And now all of a sudden, your job as a commissioner is, hey, sell this product that is not a great product right now compared to a few years ago. Come in and save us, please. And we're going to take away the best part of our product and now go try to sell it for a high dollar. That's tough. And that's why I think that we're still sitting here 11 months later and no deal, because if there was something that was going to pay these schools $35-40 million a year, you would think that it would come in right now. I mean, I think they're still scratching and clawing just to try to find something that'll get them up to whatever the Big 12 is at this point, around 32 million, something like that. And so I think they're still trying to, not that they can't do it, and maybe that deal will come through, but I think the longer this goes, the more restless Colorado, Arizona, and other schools get.
Well, there's no question, based on how Kliavkoff answered some questions at Pac-12 Media Day out in Los Angeles last July, that he didn't expect it to take this long, because some of the ways that he responded to some of those questions was a little bit snippy, and that's the part of it maybe that looks a little bit bad at this point.
Yeah, not only snippy, but a little arrogant too. When he had that comment of, he was asked about the Big 12, he goes, "Well, we haven't decided if we're going shopping yet." Like, I think it's turned out it's going to be the other way around. It looks like. I don't think the Pac-12 is going to steal anybody from the Big 12, but it could definitely be the other way around. And so, yeah, I think that the commissioner's comments, and even there was a comment that he made too, that, hey, it's not like we're losing teams that have been in the CFP, and he made that comment, and like, well, yeah, but maybe you shouldn't have said something like that, because that was a little sour grapes, and obviously you don't want to lose that LA market, which they did. And USC obviously made a run at the CFP last year. They could definitely make a run at it this year, and boy, wouldn't that be kind of a thorn in the side of the Pac-12, or that extra little turn of the knife if USC gets to the CFP on their way out of the Pac-12.
I've been asked quite a bit by folks that when you do the national radio interviews, I know you've done a ton, especially after you talked to Rick George a couple weeks ago. I get asked a lot, what do Colorado fans in terms of the future conference-wise? And I've kind of said I think it's maybe split. Yeah. The move to the Pac-12 just hasn't worked out the way that Colorado wanted it to. But on the other side of it, it wouldn't be joining the Big 12 that Colorado left.
Right.
There's no Missouri, Nebraska, those rivalries that were a big part of why the Big 12 was fun. But it's still such a more rabid area, like the Big 12 footprint, in terms of how much people care about football. Yeah. And I've missed that part of it, just even being on this beat. I've said that it's a kind of a wine and cheese culture in the Pac-12. Amazing cities to go to, but some of those game day atmospheres are worse than high school games.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think it hasn't worked out in the Pac-12, but that doesn't mean it can't. But, game day wise, I know fans, you'd much rather travel to, Seattle and California than, Ames, Iowa, Manhattan, Kansas, places like that. But game day atmosphere, I'd much rather go to, Manhattan, Kansas than Stanford, than Cal. Washington State, can be, kind of a cool atmosphere if they're good, but it's not. I mean, Arizona State's kind of a dull atmosphere. It's a huge stadium with not a lot of fans in there. And I'm not trying to put down every fan base here, but to your point, you go around the Big 12. One of the best atmospheres, or best seasons I've covered was that last year of the Big 12, when you're going around to Oklahoma, which won't be there anymore, but going around schools like that, because those fan bases are more rabid. I mean, Iowa State, they love their team there. Baylor, they love their team there. Manhattan, Kansas, they love K-State down there. And so I think there are some fans that miss. Missouri, Oklahoma, and Nebraska won't be there, but they miss some games with K-State. They miss some games with Baylor, and you'd get that. And I think this fan base would love some. I don't know, but I would guess they'd love some matchups with BYU, with UCF, and with Houston. I think there'd be some cool matchups that you would have being in the Big 12.
It doesn't matter at the end of the day, because football is what drives these decisions, but the basketball in that conference is on another level than any other conference in the country as well. I think the theme of this video, Brian, as we close out, is impatience. Everybody's getting impatient here because it has taken too long, and something's got to get done here pretty soon. Even I think we're getting impatient, right?
Yeah, I think I think June, and we're sitting here, was it June 6th or 7th that we're doing this? I think June is a huge month for the Pac-12. And I think if you go into July with no deal, I think you could very well start seeing some dominoes fall away from the Pac-12. And, Pac-12 Media Day is July 21st out in Las Vegas. And I'm curious to see, at that point, how many of those, 12 schools that are going to show up that day are actually going to be future members of the Pac-12. I mean, you legitimately, two of them we know are going to be gone. But, will legitimately half the conference be on its way out when we get to Pac-12 Media Day here in 6 weeks? I mean, that's not very far from now, but we could have a lot of answers by then.